Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie and Paul Gibson, with loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world. We deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. What are we talking about today, Charles?
Margins.
Margins. Yeah, I mean, in this climate, margins are definitely something you need to look at. You know, should you be playing, revenue protection, or do you look at growth? Do you buy when everyone is selling? What do you do?
Yeah, do you look at what you're being crushed by right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, especially with, trucking companies don't run on huge margins, so it's pretty interesting. But before we do that, we got to do the same thing we do every week. Just want to let you know that we are on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we are on Amazon Music, we are on YouTube. We're basically anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you could go like, subscribe, rate, it gives us some momentum and helps us do some cool stuff. Like some stuff we have planned on later this year.
Yeah, and you can also go to centspermilepodcast.com. You can suggest a topic, to be a guest, or even to become a sponsor.
Sponsor? Who's our sponsors today, Charles?
TAFS. Factoring can be fun. Check out TAFS.com.
You know what seems like it can't be fun anymore? The news. All right, so it's time for 10-2 News, where we look at some of the most interesting, relevant, or just whatever we want to stories from the last week or so. Nearly 2,500 Volvo trucks are recalled for an oversteer guidance issue that could result in loss of control.
Sounds like everything in trucking right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things too, where it's like, a lot of drivers, talk trash on a lot of these different, safety, like the newer safety technology that's in a lot of these trucks. And it's interesting to finally really see one really go wrong.
I mean, steering is important when you got 80,000 pounds.
Yeah, well, I mean, and there's even that video that's like rolling around TikTok and stuff, no pun intended, of that Mustang, that electric Mustang that like basically, yeah, and just rolling because the gas pedal got stuck and the wheel got locked, turning to the right.
Could you imagine being people driving down like, what is this person doing?
Oh man, yeah, the guy that got it on video, like, obviously don't film and drive. I feel like I have to say that, but the guy that got up close next to him, when he got a shot of the guy in the car, he was just sitting there, just with his eyes closed, just praying because he couldn't do anything. And eventually, he did hit the end of the barricade and just like veered off. He was stuck going right. I had that happen to. I did have the gas pedal get stuck once. I had a 91 Ford Tempo. And I was rolling around on my phone trying to call people to figure out what to do because I couldn't stop. And finally they were just like, hey, slam it in park. Watch your face.
So what's unique on this one is Volvo Trucks North America will recall nearly 2,500 trucks for an oversteer guidance defect that could result in loss of steering control. And I mean, that's pretty scary when you're in a semi truck. According to the documents submitted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration on August 11th, Volvo will recall certain 2025 to 2026 Volvo new VN trucks. From the recall documents, certain Volvo new VN vehicles equipped with dynamic steering and oversteer guidance may experience an oversteer correction, where oversteer guidance may correct for the oversteer input and then continue to correct in the opposite direction. This resulting in loss of control issues that require driver intervention. In the event of a vehicle oversteer guidance intervention without driver intervention, the ongoing correction could result in a crash.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine being in that. Like, I don't even know if I could react to that. I feel like I would struggle.
Oh, it'd be fight or flight mode. I think at that point you're like, yeah, no, we're shutting this down.
Well, I also just kind of fawn, really. It's fight, flight, or freeze. People forget about freeze, and that's me. I'm like, oh, I am watching this happen to me right now. Yep. Done. Deer in headlights. Straight deer in headlights.
And this is why you've never had a CDL. Yeah,
you're not wrong. Okay, so speaking of deer in headlights, let's talk about some economic news. So, I mean, since we're talking about it today, I thought that'd be important to pull. So we are a couple weeks away from the next Federal Reserve meeting where they decide if they're going to make cuts or not. And so one thing that's been kind of interesting, post like the whole jobs report, Trump replacing the person of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and whatnot. Trump has recently said that he's going to let Jerome Powell go to the rest of his tenure, which is up in next May, which is interesting because the president can't actually oust him. But either way, it's a huge indicator that there's going to be somebody else in there. So that's one more thing to stack onto the how is this going to go?
It's going to go the way it's going to go, and we're just going to be able to cover it like we always do. I mean, neither one of us are going to run for any one of those roles, and I think a lot of people expect this huge shakeup with this move. I don't think it's going to be a huge shakeup. It can't be any more of a shake than everything that we've done during the first part of this administration when we've uprooted everything that has been there for the last 4 years.
Right, and I would 100% agree with that, but also like most of the things we've uprooted have been around for more than 4 years, and we're going to continue to uproot things that have been around for a long time. So it is interesting to almost reach a point where the inconsistency and the change almost starts to feel like consistency and normalized.
Well, I mean, again, we get into all the volatility that we've experienced in the first part of this year, but it's all led up to this moment we're in right now. We're starting to see the end game of a lot of these moves, and a lot sooner than most reasonable people would have suspected to see them. Like, look, we're brokering peace deals.
Which ones?
Right now we got Russia sitting down with, Ukraine.
Oh, day one for sure. Cool.
Well, come on. Did you really think someone was going to snap their fingers and like peace everywhere? Some of the volatility that we've seen early on in the market for this year was any reasonable person would have expected that. No one thought someone was going to snap their fingers like Thanos and everything was going to be better.
I got to go pull those clips, man.
No, you should by all means pull the clips where I said all along to you. You kept saying day one, and I'm like, listen, man, it takes time.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I think also I would question where that up is. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Okay, yeah. I mean, he did a couple weeks ago say Americans will experience at least 2 years of pain. Whew. We're not one into it yet.
We're getting there. It checks out. It's been a year of pain.
Right. Well, that's what it hasn't been a year. It hasn't. We've still got months to go for it to be a year. And so that's wild. But I think that's why today's topic is what it is, to kind of try and for ourselves and for you, figure out ways to navigate. How do you grow? How do you maintain in this economy? And what does that look like with the kind of the uncertain outlook that we have?
Yeah. But first, we got to go behind the desk with tenstreet.
Do you want to grow your fleet but get buried by paperwork, slow hiring processes, and outdated systems, all while struggling to comply with changing safety regulations? Enter tenstreet, the all-in-one platform that simplifies driver lifecycle management by bringing marketing, recruiting, onboarding, safety, and retention together in one place. tenstreet coordinates and streamlines all your operations. Post to dozens of job boards at once. Speed time to hire with pre-population and AI to get more full applications faster. And manage the entire post-hire process, from cutting costs with online onboarding to integrating all safety data into one dashboard, to improving retention through thoughtful engagement. Whether you have one truck or 1,000, our expert team is here to help. Sleep soundly knowing you can pass an audit, attract needed drivers, and achieve your business goals. Join the thousands of carriers using tenstreet. Sign up for a demo today.
At TAFS, we offer unparalleled trucking excellence and service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like fantastic tire discounts and 1-hour advances for quick cash. Recognized as the top factoring company in 2023, we're your partner for success. Access business loans, manage finances with ease through our client portal, F2 fuel card, and mobile app. Contact us now to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
So it's time to make sense. How do you make sense about this? When we're talking about margins, being crushed by them, do you pay attention to your margins? Obviously, you kind of have to, as a business, pay attention to your margins to an extent. But do you worry about the margins here and now, or do you just look at it and it's going to shake out, balance out down the line once things self-correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what's wild, because I mean, there is a lot of protection, and I think it's really easy to fall into that trap. Like, do you grow? Do you take the risk of trying to grow and timing that perfectly, hitting a wave? Especially when everyone else might be pulling back. It's just like recruiting marketing. When the market's down and people pull back, but whoever doesn't pull back has a head start whenever it picks up again. But like, where do you, I guess that's one good place to start. In your experience, having ran a business, which I've also done, but didn't run into any weird situations like this. And, recruiting, how would you handle that?
Well, in tight markets. So when I started my company, we were at we're in a banger of a time, man, to be quite honest with you. Everything was up. But then early COVID, everything plummeted, early stages COVID. And one of the things that we had to think about as a company was, one, where's our minimum? What is our break back bottom line that if we hit that, we need to make some serious changes. Otherwise, we're going to just close up and fold up. So you have to identify what is your baseline operating cost as a business. And you have to make sure that you're at that or above that. Also, I didn't really worry at that stage unless I hit that line, which luckily I didn't, but I made enough changes above that line to give me enough of a buffer. There was no wasteful spending. It was very strategic spending. It was very strategic investments as a company, partnerships. Sometimes you start taking dollars that you might not have in a banger of a market. You almost go back to your bootstrapping mentality in markets like this, at least in my experience. You go back to that build, have a solid foundation, make money where you can make money, but try not to be hemorrhaging money doing stuff that you're not good at doing.
Yeah, I do remember that kind of in the last one. There were a lot of companies who were like, hey, especially during that time when it was up, there was a lot of people trying to get into other spaces. When everything dropped with COVID, they all backed down pretty fast.
Well, what's interesting right now is just look at the cards on the table. Take 30 feet back and just look at the board right now. In a market like this, where we know people are being crushed by margins, where are people allocating their dollars? Well, you still got a good amount of people out there allocating dollars in areas that are already oversaturated. Here, we'll just use the podcast space. We know it takes time and money to successfully do a podcast. Two things you've lived it, we've done it. Look how many people are allocating resources to that right now. And with the immediate gratification that a lot of people walk into this with, I think they're going to be very disappointed down the line when they find out it takes time. You have to build up an audience. You got to have content. It takes money if you're going to do it right. Otherwise, it's going to suck and it's going to sit on some echo chamber on YouTube and no one's going to watch it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely an interesting spot, because it's where, but I also, I question that to an extent. At what point do you look at it and you completely, I feel like that eliminates growth, not necessarily that example, but at what point do you look at your bottom line, your margin? Right. You look at it, but how much in this environment do you try to maybe adjust that or lower it, by removing some things versus making room for things that don't have an immediate ROI?
Well, that's where I go back to the bootstrapper mentality. When you're bootstrapping, you're trying to increase your margins everywhere you can. That's the difference between you paying yourself and you not being able to pay yourself. We know historically people say you can go a year without paying yourself as a business owner. And we know in times like this, we've seen management take cuts in order to increase those margins in tight markets. You have to have a minimum margin threshold. You have to establish what that bottom dollar operating cost is in order to be sufficient and be able to make sure you're making payroll and keeping the doors open. And you also have to look at strategies. How do you make more money? How do you lower your costs? How do you identify where that bottom operating cost is? And if you fall below it, what do you do then? And I think that's where it comes to chess over checkers. If you're only thinking one move at a time, you're probably having a bad time right now. But if you already came up with contingencies and plans and refined those, then if you do hit that, you have a plan. You're not sitting there flailing around, because there's nothing worse than watching a CEO flail around without a plan.
Yeah, that, and I mean, I think pivoting is huge. Like the ability, like it's almost like in a market like this, you almost have to kind of go back almost to like even if you're not a startup, almost have like a startup mentality. It's like one of those things where like within, if it doesn't cost more money, or it doesn't, it's minimal and you can afford it, like execute. Like you can fix it later. Like executing is huge in a situation like this, because a lot of people are playing it more conservative. And if you're out there executing, you're going to be probably one of the only ones. And that's, I think that as far as brands go, that looks promising. And then I think as far as, market share, because a lot of people do pull back. This, next point that we decided to talk about, I don't love it, but it's a thing. Technology. How important do you think it is to try to implement, like, because it is really, in a way that the situation is not the way it's always been. It does make it really hard to do things the way they've always been done. This is the kind of spot where people like that tend to get left behind.
Well, and it's not bad. Not all technology is bad technology. Now there are things that you could implement in a market like this that could be the final nail in your coffin. You have to implement things that make sense. But if we're talking trucking companies as an example right now, like one of the things that could be breaking your back right now is not having optimized, routing, or not having optimized dispatch. If there's technology out there, not necessarily to replace people power, but to enhance the ability for optimization, you increase your revenue per truck. You increase your revenue as a company. I mean, you might only be talking a couple $100 a week per truck, but when you multiply that by your fleet, that could be detrimental if done wrong, or it could be instrumental in finding success in a market like this.
And I would agree with that. I think that especially because there's so many solutions that have came out. Not a huge fan of that word, but it is what it is. Like to make things more efficient and whatnot, and you have the rise of AI that's kind of happening at the same time as this, regardless of how you feel about it, it's happening. And it can boost productivity. It can give you access to things that you hadn't had previously.
Well, let's take an example though. All right. If you can make a slight increase in proficiency and efficiency in your organization, say route optimization, and let's say maintenance, there's a lot of tools out there for predictive maintenance telematics. So what if you can turn around and lower your downtime because you're taking care of this stuff before it goes wrong? And what if you can optimize your running time by properly routing, optimizing the driver's hours of service, using technology? Imagine those slight margin increases and then multiply them across the vehicles in your fleet. That could be a difference maker in a market where every dollar in your margins that gives you a buffer between profit and loss helps.
Yeah, but here's an interesting catch-22 one. Is let's say that you have a technology, like some sort of technology that can improve one of your workers' output and double it, where you have two people who do that job. Do you leave the other person who does that job and then invest in growth so there's more work?
Well, I think you have to, there's no cookie cutter answer to that. It depends on your organization, depends on where you're at in your margin thresholds, depends on where you're at as business. And do you have a growth plan? Are you playing it safe? There is no cookie cutter answer. You have to look in and say, what are you trying to achieve? And then align these decision points within that and map it out accordingly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, and the next point that we had listed was pick a space within a space, maybe even within a space. Like find a spot where like you like maybe try to find something that nobody else has covered.
But don't put all your eggs in that basket, because historically we've seen what happens when you don't diversify your income or revenue as a business. If something goes wrong, you're done. Remember all those carriers we were covering earlier in the year that were specifically hauling mail, and that was it. They were done, one and done. And there's a lot of specialty niche carriers where they only have one client. Your entire operation, your entire fleet is dependent on that one client. I'm not saying you got to divest so much that client's not getting their value anymore, but you should divest some of your efforts in the other niche markets or just in the overall market. So if something goes wrong, you have a backup plan. Because what are you going to say to your people? You think that client's going to be the one sending the termination letters when you can't keep the doors open? No.
Well, yeah, that, and then, I mean, you look at it too from the perspective of, I think it's important to have a base, obviously, but like, a diversified base. But I think there's something to be said about like favoring a certain area. But to your point, I mean, especially like when things hit like COVID and stuff like that, one of the first people that always seem to have trouble is people who have like tied themselves to like a specific auto manufacturer or like somebody who's having a bad time because of whatever the situation is.
But you know what else irks me on this is people don't think outside of the box. And in markets like this, those who are sufficient, those who aren't having a great time, but they're not having a terrible time, you don't have to just diversify where your revenue is coming from. You could diversify your offerings. What is your added value in markets like this? What's going to set you aside from your competitors? And it doesn't have to be the cornerstone foundation of your business, but those extra value adds could be the decision point between you getting that dollar and someone else getting it.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a huge time for branding. It's the idea that like, even if you don't have a lot of work, it's not that hard to put yourself out there. And so when that work does come back, you're top of mind because you've been in everybody's face the entire time.
And we don't mean be in their face with your salesy nonsense the whole time either. Like we all have a LinkedIn nowadays. I can't tell you how many people are just plastering this generic stuff. And I don't pay attention. I don't even think about them other than to hit the block button. But spend this time making real relationships, putting good information out there about your value proposition. And without hard selling people, just focus on relationships and communication. And when they need you, you're going to be top of mind versus the person that I just blocked today. I think there was like 3 of them on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, like I used to put out like video tutorials on like how to light and how to do, set up sound and stuff. And because of those, I still have people like a couple years later, even though I don't really use LinkedIn all that much, still reaching out to me and being like, hey, by the way, so I'm doing this. What do you think? And it's like, if you can kind of provide value and establish yourself as some sort of like expert in a specific part of a space, you're going to be the person, it's like, because most of those other people are so focused on, the fact that there's not work. It's important to just focus that the people who will give you work eventually are also out there. But yeah, and to the last point that we have, it's really important to, set it's kind of almost a conclusion. It's really important to set your minimum, what you need, because you don't want to go under, because then you can't do anything later. You don't want to lose the business. But like, it's important to figure out, get yourself set up, get a firm foundation. But then once you're set up and you're set for whatever the market's going to throw at you, go out there and grab it, get the bag.
Well, and I think it's a great way to recap everything that we've said today. Once you know your operating costs, your bare bones operating costs, once you have a plan, once you've implemented everything internally, then go out there and hold your line. Sit there, hold your ground, have a firm, stance and grip on your market share, and look for strategic partnerships to enhance and extend. Don't be scared to reach across your little wall that you built of security and try for something more. You have to put yourself out there. You have to put your companies out there. And in order to do that, you have to remember the fundamentals. You got a solid product or service. You have a solid solution. Connect the dots between your client's problems and your offering and how it can make that problem go away. And your service becomes the solution. And have a good, reputable brand. You can't be out there, with a crappy reputation trying to sell stuff. It's not going to work. We all know those people and we laugh at them every time they post.
Yeah, well, and I think it's the other thing too is like it's kind of you can only do what you can do, but I think what you choose to do matters. As word salady as that was, it's like the idea. So we've talked about it previously on another episode about like going to trade shows and how to navigate them and stuff and networking. And it's the idea that like a lot of people can't make it to said things because of funds or their company knocks it down, but it's like the people who do put themselves out there in these situations, those are the ones who end up making the bonds that end up exploding later.
Yeah, reinforce your efforts. You have to put yourself out there. And sometimes that means you literally have to be out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're not putting yourself out there, people are very in their own heads right now. They're very, like face down, head down, working to figure stuff out because of margins and stuff like that. But it's important to reach out, even if it's like not so much, like a, hey, let's work together, or like you were saying, like a sales pitch, but just like a, hey, we are in this together. Do you need anything? Can I help you? I think that goes a long way. Or even just, like what we do, just trauma bond about how terrible everything is.
Yeah, but hey, man, listen, at the end of the day, for all of our viewers out there, just know if you need a shoulder to lean on, we're here. If you need someone to trauma bond with, we're here. And if you need an introduction, we're here. All you got to do is reach out, use your network. And since you're a viewer, we're happy to oblige.
Yeah. Yeah. We know people and we know you. And if you don't know us, introduce yourself. We'll definitely be some places later this year. We'll be at the Broker Carrier Summit in Orlando. We will be at F3, which is great, being on FreightWaves and then going to FreightWaves, since yeah.
And who's not going to the Freight Festival? It's in Chattanooga. How can you miss it? It's the number one place for millennials to retire.
Is this a good time to say that What the Truck is up next? No? Okay. But yeah, and then, then there's also, there's a truck show coming up, like the Star Stripes and White Lines truck show in November in Georgia. Like we'll be around, we'll be out there. And we'd love to meet you guys, and we'd love to help out anybody we can.
I'm going to add on to this. So I was at the FreightWaves headquarters last week when I was co-hosting What the Truck. I can confirm there's actually people in the building.
Yeah.
It looks like a thriving little empire over there.
I just every day.
It means X had some fake news on it, but it's okay.
Fake news on there. That's nuts. But it's not fake news.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.